In this video, I'm going to show you how to improvise in the Baroque style. There are other videos on YouTube about how to improvise in the Baroque style, and they give you very specific techniques, patterns that you can use, and this is all well informed. My approach is more spontaneous. I allow my fingers to do whatever they want. I think that a certain familiarity with Baroque harmony facilitates improvisation in this style. I will speak at various intervals throughout the video to break down some of the techniques which have emerged in this improvisation. As you can see, this first part of my improvisation was in the key of G minor. The essential chord patterns and harmonies were outlined. I suspect that when I improvise, I probably have this harmonic pattern in mind, probably through familiarity with other Baroque music. And you will see as this improvisation unfolds further that I do more or less stick with this harmonic progression, but of course I do modulate using various secondary dominants, facilitated through chromatic movement either in the soprano line or perhaps the bass line, or various other forms of enharmonic modulation facilitated through these chromatic patterns. So you will see this and I will comment further. See that this next section more or less followed the patterns of the first section, but I started to explore chromatic nuances. For example, I noticed I had used 5/7 of A flat. Now, of course, if we are in the key of G minor, that would have been, in fact, the dominant seventh of the Neapolitan chord, which, of course, could have facilitated modulation through enharmonic modulation using the German sixth, but I allowed it to go back to A flat, and from A flat I went to D7, which is 5/7 in G minor. So I like to explore these chromatic patterns, these chromatic descents. Often you will notice that I have a descending chromatic line in the soprano voice, and I tend to use this for modulation. When I do decide to modulate, I might enharmonically reinterpret one of those notes chromatically to allow enharmonic modulation to a different key, as you will notice. As you will notice, in this section, I used a common Baroque technique, that of augmentation. I preserved the harmonic framework, but I lengthened the notes, perhaps by a factor of 2 or by 4, depending on how you interpret the bass time unit, whether one views it as being in crotchets or minims. And this allows for variation. I then reached a pedal point, as you heard at the bottom, on the note D, the dominant note, and in typical Baroque style, I improvised on top of that with various patterns which involved the third scale degree, the second scale degree, the third scale degree, the tonic, and then moving up a broken chord. So it's essentially a combination of arpeggios and scales moving back on themselves and then expanding the scale and so forth. So that allows for a pedal point. The harmonies often clash, but the overall effect is one of tension on the dominant note. In this next section, you will see that I change to a different subject. It's not exactly a fugal subject. I'm not really developing a fugue, but this is a common feature in Baroque music. There is more than one fugal theme, if you can call it that. It's related in some melodic sense to the first theme from the first improvisatory section, but I develop it in a different way. The rhythm is more rapid, and it lends contrast to the preceding section. In this next section, I change to the relative major of B flat major. This might be akin to a development section. I explore other harmonies, but I preserve the melodic framework of this new second theme. In this next part, you will notice two things. Firstly, I make a slight modification to the second melodic theme. Instead of beginning on G, I begin on D. It almost resembles a slight melodic inversion. And this brings this particular melodic section to its end, and I reinforce this with a section of broken or expanded chords. As you know, the figured bass in the Baroque period was often realized by the harpsichord player or whichever bass instrument was being used through the implementation of broken chords or arpeggios. And I do this, I follow a descending sequence of chords in the left hand in various inversions which descend by step. They're in fact various seventh chords, and I realize these through melodic fragmentation, chordal fragmentation in the right hand, and this is how I bring this section to its end. this next section, I explore various techniques which are not actually particularly Baroque in nature. I explore chromatic mediant key relationships. I move to the chromatic mediant of G minor, or one of those, which is E flat minor. And from there, later on, I move to C minor. I also move, of course, to E flat major. I stray into romantic chord usage. I use augmented chords. I have a section that goes into F sharp minor. And I explore all manner of techniques, but I'm still faithful to the underlying concept which I outlined in the beginning.